Welcome to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast. The Fantasy Throwdown Podcast. Bringing you the latest from the world of daily fantasy sports and gambling, so you can stop Googling how to join a squid game to cover all those parlays you thought were such a sure thing. Now, sit back and listen to one of the sharpest minds in the game. Here's your host, Dwayne Callender.
All right, folks, welcome to another edition of the show. We actually had to scrap the original episode for this UFC 279 preview, mainly because last night all hell broke loose at the weigh-ins, wherein the actual main event of the entire pay-per-view had to be scrapped because Khamzat Chimaev was 7.5 pounds overweight for his welterweight title fight against Nate Diaz. Basically, Chimaev, to put this into context, was in line to be the contender for the for whomever wins the rematch between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman for the trilogy. That third fight's going to happen in London, but Chimaev was going to fight the winner when he was a prohibitive minus 900 favorite against Nate Diaz. Chimaev, the only thing he had to do was make weight. Literally make weight and win the fight. But winning the fight was pretty much almost a lock. This was one of the most, boring bets to ever make because Nate Diaz, to put this into context for this pay-per-view, Nate Diaz was on the final fight of his UFC contract and had been begging to get released out of his UFC contract. He was done with it. Every interview from Nate Diaz indicates he does not give a rat's ass about who he's fighting. He just wants to get out of his contract, and he'll take the paycheck too on the way out. Like, this was pretty much a done deal. Chimaev's gonna find a way to win this fight, probably in the first round. Basically, Nate was unless this is one of the greatest slow plays ever, where he just sandbags everyone in the audience by talking about how much he doesn't care. But that is never Nate Diaz's style. If there's one thing you know with the Diaz brothers, they're always upfront and pretty honest about how they feel. And how Nate felt was that he was being disrespected his entire UFC contract. He wanted out. He wanted to get bigger paydays. And he's already moving on with the next phase of his life, knowing that he can draw money pretty much with whatever he does because he's that captivating a personality. So, this was literally going to be a cakewalk for Chimaev. Chimaev is 7.5 pounds overweight. And for those of you who are asking, well, could they make it work anyway? Basically, with most fighting commissions, if you are even usually they give you a warning if you're over 3 pounds overweight. 5 in most commissions statewide across the country, they cancel the fight outright. Like, they dump it. The UFC might have been able to salvage this if Nate was opting to take a catchweight fight. But realistically, why would Nate volunteer when he's really more of a 155er, not a 170-pounder? He's really a 155 kind of guy. Fighting at 170 was more because he doesn't want to cut down to 155 anymore. So going up to 180, would have been insane for Nate. It doesn't make any sense at that point because he can only bulk up so much. It does nothing for him. Chimaev, maybe he thought, not cutting the weight and getting a different fight. This is one of the most boneheaded decisions ever. He cost himself a ton of money. Nate Diaz renegotiated his contract for this last fight to save the pay-per-view because with the fight canceled, they had to find a replacement. Dustin Poirier was on standby, at 176, ready to fight Nate at a catch weight to get the fight over and done with. Because Poirier could have cut, even though it's 6 pounds, Poirier's a pro. He probably would have been able to find a way to make down the weight. Actually, no, I'm saying that wrong. Poirier was at 170.6. See, it's I'm going through so much stuff so quickly. Poirier was already on weight, so he could have made the fight automatically at 170. This is beyond crazy how this went down. Chimaev was such a prohibitive favorite. Basically, all we were going to talk about was KO props and inside the distance finishing props for Chimaev against Nate Diaz. This was a boring betting card and a pretty rudimentary DFS slate. Now, it's still kind of boring from a betting standpoint, but from a DFS standpoint, we've got a lot of game theory to apply here. So let's just get right down to it. The replacement fighter for Khamzat Chimaev is Tony Ferguson, who was going to fight Li Jingliang, and Tony's coming off 4 straight losses. And most recently, got knocked out into oblivion by Michael Chandler via a front kick that is a viral moment that pretty much any fight fan has seen. If you haven't seen it, you can Google Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, and you'll just see a still motion photo of Tony Ferguson's face being completely deformed upon the moment of impact of Michael Chandler's foot to his chin. And that was less than 5 months ago. We're about 4 months out from that fight. Somehow the fighting commission cleared Ferguson. I couldn't believe that Ferguson was even on this card to begin with. But Tony's lost 4 fights in a row. So you got Nate Diaz, who doesn't care and didn't look like he was really training that hard for this fight. And Tony Ferguson, who's lost 4 fights in a row, granted, all high-level competition, who are either the champ or fought for the championship in the last year and a half. Because he lost to Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje before then. I mean, Tony's had some, rough beatings. I mean, the Gaethje fight, he got beat like a government mule beat. Tony's taking a lot of hard shots. And I thought even with the Chandler fight, with Chandler, I thought Tony could actually catch him and eventually get the get a finish. But that Chandler front kick in the second round, it was on point and just flattened him. Absolutely flattened him. So, truth be told, this is just one of those things where I have to say that I want to say Tony Ferguson should still find a way to win this fight just because he's the one that's got a lot to prove. He's still under contract for a few more fights. But, if he loses this fight, because he was a prohibitive dog against Li Jingliang, there was a chance that Tony was going to get cut after this fight. Now Tony's the favorite against Nate Diaz. Tony, who has lost 4 fights in a row, is a minus 135 favorite against Nate Diaz. That should tell you something about how negatively Nate Diaz is being viewed right now in terms of just fight fans and the folks who do analysis like myself. That's where Nate is right now. Completely checked out, not interested in fighting anymore. But wanting the paycheck regardless from the UFC to just finish out this fight contract. He's 37 years old at this point. We are multiple years removed from his win over Conor McGregor. I just want to be honest here. This is kind of wild where, the last fight we had was the Leon Edwards fight where he realistically got beat pretty decisively by Leon, and that was almost 500 days ago. Nate Diaz has not fought in over 450 days. Think about that. Think about it. It was last June, that Edwards fight. Last June. I've lost track of how many episodes I've done since I've covered. Because we broke down that fight. And even then I thought, man, I want to pick Nate, but I still think Leon's going to handle this one. This is just surreal that we are on a guy who has lost 4 fights in a row as a favorite. from a betting standpoint, I totally get it. Why we would take Tony. Because Nate doesn't really have knockout power in his hands. He's really more of a slap fighter where he'll accumulate damage on you. Whereas Tony's going to throw some random spinning attacks and elbows and knees and try to catch Nate and bust him up. I could see this fight being just a bloody affair where it just goes to a decision. And that's the crazy part. The inside the distance number basically is going to, like, it's a pick'em fight for whether or not this fight goes to a decision or not. It's crazy. No one wants to bet that this is going to end up being inside the distance finish. I think Tony's more likely to finish inside the distance against Nate. Tony has the better odds of finishing inside the distance, but it's really not a great number. Like, Tony's at plus 205 to finish inside the distance. Nate is at plus 325. That should, like, tell you realistically, everyone's thinking this fight is going the distance. And on DraftKings, pricing wise, they didn't reset the pricing. Nate is 6,600. Tony's 7,200. I can't believe I'm actually suggesting this. But this is actually a case where you can make an argument because both guys are going to trade shots. They're going to trade punches. You can actually make an argument in a 5-round fight. If you don't think they're going to go to a finish, you're going to make an argument of playing both fighters in the main event, banking on that fight going to a decision, and the loser still scoring enough points because of significant strikes landed over 25 minutes. Because the one thing Tony and Nate do is they do put out a lot of volume in terms of significant strikes per minute. They're still going to be striking over 5 strikes per minute on both sides. This is one of those things where you do the math, 5 strikes over 25 minutes, like, you've got over 100 significant strikes on both sides. That's going to score very well from a DFS standpoint. Maybe someone gets taken down. I don't know. Tony doesn't really like taking people down. And they're both good with jiu-jitsu, so it kind of cancels each other out. It's not like either guy has a true technical advantage, and they're both so macho and alpha that I can see them talking themselves, even if they have an opportunity for a wide open shot to take a guy down and control a round, they're not going to take it because their pride's going to tell them, I can finish this dude standing up. I don't need to get him on the ground. It's crazy. This is a wild fight scenario where, from a betting perspective, no one thinks this is going. No one's thinking that this is going to finish inside the distance. And a guy with 4 straight losses is the favored fighter. It's wild. It is absolutely bonkers that we're in this spot, but it's a close fight. It's a close fight. I lean Tony as well, but man, Nate can win this fight. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me with everything going on that he puts it together and it delivers enough combos to win 3 rounds. I don't see a finish in this fight. But from a game theory standpoint and the amount of salary savings you get from both Ferguson and Nate Diaz, stacking the fight is not the craziest thing in the world because Chimaev, guess what? Got an opponent that's almost as straightforward to fight as Nate in Kevin Holland. They're doing the catchweight fight at 180 pounds. Kevin Holland's more naturally in that frame of middleweight. He's just going to make the. But the wild thing about all of this, and I can't get this out of my head. I really can't get this out of my head. When you look at what's going on with Chimaev, his striking hasn't changed. He's still an incredibly dangerous striker to finish guys with knockout power. The fact that he missed, and it's crazy how this happened, the fact that he missed weight as horribly as he did, leads me to believe not that there was any sort of injury. He just didn't give a rat's ass about fighting for the belt and just said, screw it. I'll take whatever fight. I'm not cutting weight. I don't care. It's crazy that it got to this point, but that's what seems to have happened. Because realistically, Chimaev wasn't hurt. He wasn't injured. He just, at that amount of a weight cut miss, you just didn't try to lose weight. So the wild part about all this is Chimaev basically gets to fight a fighter in Kevin Holland who has knockout power in his hands. Don't get me wrong, but even worse takedown defense than what he would have faced in Nate Diaz. So even though he's going up a couple of pounds to fight Kevin Holland, Chimaev is he was a minus 800 favorite against Nate Diaz. Some books had him at minus 900, but he's a minus 550 favorite against Kevin Holland because of the reasons I have outlined. Kevin Holland's takedown defense is abysmal. He has less than, I want to say, if I have the numbers right, I think he has a less than 40% success rate in takedown defense. It's either low 40s or maybe he hit 50, but it's low. Just so you know. And Chimaev attempts multiple takedowns per 15 minutes. He usually gets around 2 or 3, but because he starches so many guys, it really never comes down to his takedowns. But his success rate is over 60%. He's going to take down Holland whenever he wants if he goes for it. I don't see Holland being able to stay on his feet. And the thing of it is that DraftKings, because they didn't change the pricing, Holland was a favorite against Li Jingliang. Holland is still priced at $8,700. I cannot recommend playing Kevin Holland even as a leverage play, because as a leverage play, you would have to be playing over, in terms of multi-entry formats, I would say Kevin Holland shouldn't be hitting your builds until you get through 100 lineups. And I'm just being honest here. There's really no reason to be trying to force feed Kevin Holland into build. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense in terms of the grand scheme of things. Why you would try to force feed Kevin Holland the lineups, knowing that Chimaev's best path to victory is just taking him down as soon as the first round begins, taking him down, weigh on him, try to drain Kevin Holland's gas tank, because Chimaev's gas tank also has to be called into question, because how hard did he really train given the weight cut miss? Again, the cardio is a big question, because even when Chimaev fought Gilbert Burns was having success in that third round until Chimaev got him later on because of all the damage Gilbert had accumulated. But Chimaev was slowing down dramatically. I just look at it as a case where there are different ways of getting making your lineup unique that don't take on as much risk as Kevin Holland. Now, I anticipate Kevin Holland's ownership being less than 10% on DraftKings, but even from that standpoint, I don't think his odds of winning are 10%. I think it's probably closer to 5 or 6%, because I think Kevin Holland needs a finish to win this fight. I think Chimaev's going to control enough minutes that Kevin Holland's going to lose 3 rounds, because even though this fight got bumped up to 5 rounds, I think Kevin Holland's going to have to finish Chimaev in the championship rounds. I think in the first 3 rounds, Chimaev's wrestling is going to be able to take down Holland and keep him there. I don't see Kevin Holland being able to be on his feet long enough to put Chimaev in any sort of danger. Maybe I'm wrong and, he catches him with something, but I just don't see it happening. I think the most likely scenario is Chimaev gets Holland to the ground and then pounds on him and finishes the fight within within 2 rounds. I almost said 2 minutes, but I think he finishes it in the second round most likely. But it wouldn't shock me if Chimaev finished it in the first round, where you still got props at plus 200 for Chimaev, even though he's still a significant favorite. No one really knows which round he's going to be able to finish this fight. Some people still have him losing the fight, betting wise, and just took the sharp money, supposedly sharp money on Kevin Holland. I just don't see it as necessarily a sharp play. The numbers growing on Holland because of the money flowing in on Chimaev, but I just think that Holland took the right approach. He negotiated the contract for the revised fight, made more money in the process, and he'll just kind of take the money, and it sounds like he's just going to take the L and be done with it, because it doesn't really count that hard against him because he helped save the pay-per-view. It's, again, I say this, but you'll see how it plays out later on tonight, but it's just wild in terms of how the build. So with Chimaev at 9,600, salary-wise, you would say it's pretty rough to actually fit him in. The thing is, if you play Tony and Nate together, you can fit in Chimaev and a bunch of these other favorites that I'm going to get into a bit later on. But it is certainly food for thought, in my opinion. So we go into our next rescheduled fight, or remade fight, and that's Li Jingliang, who was going to face Tony Ferguson and was favored, now is facing Daniel Rodriguez at a catchweight of 180 pounds. And, Li Jingliang was supposed to be fighting at 170. He's moving at this catchweight to fight Daniel Rodriguez. And D-Rod is a former light heavyweight. Like, I don't know where this works. Like, how this actually works. Because D-Rod was gonna fight, D-Rod was gonna fight Kevin Holland. I got that wrong. Li Jingliang was gonna be favored against, no, I had it right. Li Jingliang was gonna be favored against Tony Ferguson. D-Rod was an underdog against Kevin Holland. D-Rod's not changing weight. Li Jingliang basically is not cutting the weight and just rehydrated to fight at 180, but realistically he's a 170er. He's just using his water weight to rehydrate to 180. Like, Daniel Rodriguez is basically going to be around close to 195 to 200 pounds when he fights Li Jingliang later today. Whereas Jingliang is going to be basically 180 pounds. Like, it's going to be a real weight difference. So the thing of it is that D-Rod is only about 1 inch higher and only a 3-inch reach advantage. But the thing about D-Rod is he pumps out a crazy number of significant strikes per minute. He pumps out over 8 significant strikes per minute, and Lee just does not throw with the same amount of volume. So you got a bigger, stronger dude throwing out more punching power and volume. I just expect Daniel Rodriguez to batter Li Jingliang, and this is my favorite bet of the day because Daniel Rodriguez is only a minus 150 favorite. I'm just going to keep hammering this line. This line should be probably around minus 250, in my opinion, because I don't see Li Jingliang being able to wrestle Daniel Rodriguez to the ground. I don't see him being able to hold Rodriguez to the ground. I don't see where he's going to be able to, I don't see Jingliang being able to knock out Daniel Rodriguez. Like, that is his only pathway to victory, and I don't think he has that power at this weight class to really starch a dude. I don't see it. I really don't see it. So from a betting perspective, Daniel Rodriguez has fallen into a beautiful nut spot of just now being only a slight favorite. But I just think you just like the numbers on Daniel Rodriguez being able to finish this inside the distance, he is plus 225 to finish inside the distance. I do not see this fight going to distance. I think with the amount of significant strikes, I think Daniel Rodriguez can get him out there, especially with the size difference that you're going to see. He's going to be carrying more weight and more power behind his punches. I don't see Jinglang getting through the third round. I think this fight ends inside the distance, and plus 225, definitely. And then even from a prop standpoint, if Daniel Rodriguez, if you want to bet it, he's plus 600 to finish by knockout or submission in the first round. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility either. But Daniel Rodriguez is my favorite bet on this actual card. And because of everything that went on, you get these matchups, and I look at this like, I hope Lee got a hefty payday from the UFC, because this is not the fight that he was expecting. He was expecting Tony Ferguson and being able to likely be able to take Tony down because of the smaller frame. I just don't see a pathway for Lee to win this fight other than landing a punch right on the chin and taking him out. I don't see it. I don't see it. Rodriguez has been pretty good in scraps, so I don't see it. We got a couple other fights. Irene Aldana versus Macy Chiasson. Macy is a plus 155 underdog. Aldana minus 180 favorite. The inside the distance is plus 130, so not expected to go finish inside the distance. They expect this to go to a decision. Aldana basically is good at takedown defense, but she's going to strike with you. Chiasson wants to get this to the ground as soon as possible and be able to row up a submission to try to get a win. That's basically Chiasson's only game plan here. She's going to keep trying to go for it. Aldana, I don't think she finishes Chiasson, so I'm staying away from this fight from a DFS perspective. From a betting perspective, yeah, you can throw it into some parlays, but none of these numbers are all that interesting to me in terms of the fight for this one. Next up, we've got Yon Cutelaba and Johnny Walker. Basically, fireworks. Could Johnny Walker pull this one out and get a finish? Certainly. Can I say Yon Cutelaba having the knockout of the night before it's all said and done? Absolutely. I could see him finishing Johnny Walker in the first round, in the second round. I don't see this fight going to a third round. Like, one way or another, maybe Johnny Walker gets lands a big shot on Cutelaba. It wouldn't surprise me in the least, just because of how Cutelaba fights at times, being very open. But truth be told, I don't see a scenario where this fight gets into the third round. These guys put out a good bit of volume, and they're throwing heat. Yeah, so Cutelaba also lands takedowns at a tremendous rate. Johnny Walker, terrible in terms of the fight IQ, because his takedown defense isn't the best, but sometimes he can take down other dudes and use his jiu-jitsu, and he just doesn't do it. So he is very limited in that regard in terms of some of his skill sets that he just doesn't use. But I just look at this as Cutelaba should be favored, and he is at minus 200, but I don't see where Cutelaba also, you can't just take the minus 125 to finish inside the distance, because that realistically is the most likely scenario. I just see Cutelaba taking care of business, getting him out before the third round, and from a DFS standpoint, Cutelaba is only costing you 8,600. He might be the best play on the DFS slate tonight in terms of overall value before it's all said and done. So I will have a lot of Cutelaba. Johnny Walker, yes, you could use it as a leverage play. And frankly, Kevin Holland would be a better leverage play, in my opinion, than Johnny Walker. But if you want to apply the game theory in terms of the odds, yeah, you can take a shot on Johnny Walker because he has the power to knock out Cutelaba. And there's a chance, there's very real chance that Cutelaba leaves himself open and exposed to getting dropped. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to circle back with a couple of the other fights that are still left on this card, so stick with us.
Don't go anywhere. The Fantasy Throwdown Podcast will be right back after our sponsors pay the bills. Welcome back to the show. Hope you got your popcorn ready.
All right, so getting back into the mix of things, we've got Hakeem Dawodu versus Juicy J. Julian Erosa. Dawodu is a minus 225 favorite. Erosa is plus 190. Erosa is 7,300 on DraftKings. Dawodu is 8,900. Here's the bottom line. I'm probably going to have exposure to both sides of this fight. And the only question I have is am I going to max out both fighters and just in terms of the entries and just go 100% all in on this fight and one way or the other because of the fact that Erosa fights a very fast-paced style and leaves himself very wide open to getting hit and getting hit hard that I could see him getting finished. The inside the distance line is minus 105. I think it should be like realistically, I think that my inside the distance line should be probably closer to like minus 180. I think this fight is almost certainly going to finish inside the distance, unless Dawodu. And part of the reason why is Dawodu does get a lot of decisions in the UFC, so they're saying that he's probably not going to get a finish, but Dawodu basically lands over 5 significant strikes per minute. And Erosa, he leaves his chin up. And like, this is not as though they don't have power at 145. They've got power. So there's a very real chance that we see a finish here. And because of Erosa's pricing at 7,300, if he gets a finish, it's almost a lock that he's in the optimal. If not because of this goofy pricing between Nate and Tony, where maybe the winner of that fight outpaces Erosa. But this is one of the fights where I could see the dog winning, and it's not even remotely shocking. But Dawodu also has pretty good pop, and I think there's edge here with people not thinking this fight's going to finish inside the distance, and I disagree. I feel very good about betting the inside the distance finish from a betting standpoint, but from a DFS standpoint, roster construction wise, I think both Dawodu and Erosa are very much in play across the board. So, it's just going to be kind of pick your path as to how you build out your lineups, but I feel very good about that matchup. Next up, we've got. Oh, and actually, I should say this. Dawodu did weigh in 1.5 pounds overweight. So, yes, he missed weight. Did he look good on the scale? Yeah. So, this could be just one where, he just couldn't lose the extra pound and a half, or just actually 1 pound, because they do give you like a half pound grievance, if you will, to make weight and within allowance. But, I just don't necessarily see Dawodu. He missed it. He did miss the weight, but he didn't look bad. So I think he's going to be well rested and ready to go. I look at it as like I could see find a pathway for Erosa winning, but I think Dawodu probably wins this 70% of the time, so I'll probably do a 70-30 mix. and just go all in on this fight, because I think the winner has a very good chance of being in the optimal based off of some of the pricing we're seeing here if you don't stack Nick and Tony Ferguson together. Next up, Jolton Almeida, 9,500 on DraftKings, minus 660 favorite. He's fighting Anton Turkalai. This fight is basically lock in Almeida and move on. I don't see where Almeida loses this fight. It's just, it is what it is. It's like, from my standpoint, they're trying to promote at heavyweight Almeida. There's just not much else to it. I think Almeida just steamrolls this dude. And because of the salary on Nick and Nate, I think Almeida, if you're stacking the Diaz and Tony fight, Almeida has to be in your lineup at that point, because you're baking in a loss. So you need a big boy score from the likes of Almeida to make up for that. So that's all I'm going to say on this fight. I think it's just lock them and move on with the rest of your build. Next up, we got Jamie Pickett versus Dennis Tululin. This fight has been supposed to happen for about 3 different times at middleweight 185, and it just keeps getting canceled. So they're finally going to fight. Pickett is, pretty average across the board, nothing too awe-inspiring. He's only a minus 130 favorite. Tulin, I'm not as familiar with, but this is one of those 8,300, 7,900. Chances are the winner ends up on the optimal because of their salary savings to get some of the other studs. And I don't know exactly who would be the best person served to win, whether it's Pickett or Tulin. This is a very close fight. It's supposed to finish inside the distance. It's at minus 120. But realistically, with what these guys do, Pickett isn't a great wrestler. He doesn't have great accuracy with his takedowns. Tulin is a striker who's not great with takedown defense. So whoever is able to enforce their will should win the fight. And, people are more confident in this one ending inside the distance. I'm more confident in the Dawadu fight ending inside the distance than I am this one. But, if it does finish inside the distance, you definitely have to be on the right side of that fight. Because I can see that if it finishes inside the distance, you're going to need a lot of other factors to go in the way if you don't have this fight in your builds. So in terms of the fight itself, I think Pickett wins by decision, but Tulin does have knockout power that I could see him finishing Pickett. I just don't think Pickett finishes inside the, that's the only thing that has me slightly concerned with the pricing. I might end up having more of Tulin, but I don't know. It does, the more I keep thinking about this fight, the more I'm wondering if that inside the distance number makes the most sense. Because Pickett, he just doesn't, he does have some finishes, but it's weird because both guys don't go to decision a ton. So that's part of the reason why. It's just that when Pickett wins, it's been more the other guy just kind of gassed out. So it's that's why he's only 2-3 in the UFC. I wish I had a more definitive stance on it. But my gut's telling me Pickett doesn't finish this fight, but Tulin probably could. But to me, it's more of a coin flip. So you could take Tulin at the plus 110 figure as an underdog, but I just think it's a coin flip fight, as indicated in the odds, to be honest. Next up, we got a heavyweight matchup, and basically super heavyweight matchup. It's all the way up at 265, and Chris Barnett did weigh over 265, so he missed weight. So we're we're now in the age of heavyweights missing weight. Jake Collier, a minus 410 favorite against Chris Barnett. And I will say this, I did say Chris Barnett missed weight, but, there's a very logical reason behind all this. Chris Barnett lost his wife within the past month. I have very strong consideration of wondering why Chris Barnett is even taking this fight. Maybe it's to pay for the funeral costs. Like, I have questions on his motivation level for this fight. He missed weight. Was he training hard? It's heavyweight fight. It's low-level heavyweight fight. So there is knockout power in the hands of these guys. And Chris Barnett, big guy, he's only like 5. He's shorter than I am. Chris Barnett is like only like 5'8", I think, and weighs over 265 pounds. He is a literal fire hydrant. They say 5'9", but I swear, like I've seen the tape of this guy. Like he is absolutely shorter than I am, and by a good margin. I honestly think he's 5'8". I don't think he's 5'9". I think they're rounding him up to 5'9". To be honest, but it's just one of those things where it's like Chris Barnett had a spinning back kick, spinning heel kick for a victory that you have to see in a viral moment, and his dance move, like Chris Barnett dances to the arena, he's entertaining. But just because you're entertaining doesn't mean I'm going to bet you with my money. This should be Collier all day. Collier has lost a couple of split decisions at heavyweight that he should have won. He definitely won the Arlovsky fight, but we'll see. We'll see what he comes up with, but I expect him to be able to finish Barnett. The inside the distance number is minus 140. And Collier is 9,100 on DraftKings. Barnett 7,100. So yeah, you could see some Barnett builds creeping through. He does have knockout power, as I've talked about. Like his spinning hook kick is very impressive for a guy his size. Like to be able to move that quickly, athleticism, and generate the torque needed to do that finish, and land the kick. You got to see the video. If you haven't seen that video, well, go watch the video. In that John Vellante fight. I mean, but yeah, I just think Collier throws volume. Again, I just don't know what Barnett's motivation is. He had a death of his wife. I don't know where his head's at, and I don't feel great about that, given so many other places we could go on this card for value because of all the last-minute changes to the card. Barnett is no longer value because you've got guys who can win at lower prices. It just doesn't make sense to me. All right. We're going to run through the last couple of fights here, just because I just don't have a ton of interest in them. Norma Dumont versus Danielle Wolf. Dumont's a minus 410 favorite, 9,200 on DraftKings. I'm fading this entirely. Danielle Wolf fading entirely. Danielle Wolf literally has only fought one fight in MMA before getting a call from the UFC. She does have boxing experience, but I have no interest in it. I have no idea what tape she really has. She only has one professional MMA fight. It just doesn't make a ton of sense in my opinion. So I gotta call out that one. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me in that fight. So fading DFS, avoiding it from a betting standpoint. Dumont's pretty boring from a fight standpoint. It probably goes to a decision. But I don't even think it's worth taking the risk even in parlays because Dumont's just not that impressive to me personally. Next up, a bantamweight fight at 135 between Atalagani and Chad Allniger. Alatang just needs to wrestle. Just wrestle. You guys could hear my frustration. Alatang has some of the dumbest fight IQ I've seen in a fighter. Just wrestle. wrestle. Oh my goodness. The dude just wants to stand and bang. Just wrestle. You can out wrestle most of these dudes at this weight class. Just wrestle. Oh, God. It's just frustrating watching some of these dudes. But then you got Chad Allgaier, because of Alateng taking as much damage as he has over the years. Yeah, he could get finished. But again, at 7,800, there's no value in this number for Chad Allgaier, and Alateng has an easy pathway to victory. Just shoot for takedowns. You're a minus 170 favorite. You would be minus 250 if you were even remotely more diligent in your fight preparation and approach, that odds makers will feel more confident in you. That's the long and short. Alateng should win this fight all day, every day. But because of his habits, it's telling the odds makers, let's not go all in on this dude. And I can't blame him. Cannot blame him. I expect Alateng to win. Wouldn't be shocked if he lost like a split decision where he's just like swinging for the fences, and, you know, who knows how it's going to go. Next up, Melissa Martinez and Elise Reed. This is a hard pass. Martinez is a minus 170 favorite, 8,500 on DraftKings, 7,700 for Reed. Like, this is 15 minutes of striking, and who knows who's going to, like, their striking this is not high level striking. You know, whomever lands a couple of halfway decent shots probably wins the fight, but, you know, we're not seeing fight of the night out of this matchup, so we're going to just keep it moving with our last fight of the prelims, and I'm going to get out of here. From a roster construction standpoint, Darian Weeks is one of the fighters that I'm looking to target. Yes, Johan Linesi gives you a $200 savings, but I think Darian Weeks at 8,200, because of all the other fighters you can get in, because of the reshuffling of the card, Darian Weeks should be in. I'd probably say he's probably going to be in like about 40% of my lineups, and I'm playing at least 20 lineups this week. Probably more, but it's like I think Weeks is going to be in on at least 40%, if not more, once I build out the numbers, because Weeks was the underdog. This fight opened up with Linnaeus at a minus 150 favorite. It got bet to where Weeks is a minus 120 favorite. You know, I at 170, I just expect, and this is the inside the distance finish number is at minus 205. People expect Weeks to take down Linnaeus and be able to get the finish. Now, Linnaeus is huge. He is a very big 170 pounder. He's got knockout power, but he does gas out. So if Weeks gets this into the second and third round, I think Linnaeus is going to be completely and utterly gassed, and he just takes him out. And so I will also be live betting this one to see how it goes. If Linnaeus gets out to a good start, I'm going to be live betting Weeks, because I expect Weeks to be able to wrestle him down to the ground and get a finish, even if he loses the first round. So to me, Weeks is definitely going to be in play for me throughout this card. I expect ownership on Weeks as well, so I'm not saying anything too crazy. But for this card, I think there's just other ways of going about it that you don't necessarily have to put yourself in danger of losing out on the opportunity here, because again, as I said, we sometimes tend to overthink this, and I just don't think this is an overthink it kind of event. I think realistically, there are some favorites here, and because of the reshuffling at the top of the card that I talked about, we just need to target that, and then some of these bottom pieces, it fits into place. Let's not overthink it. So, as I said, I'll have a lot of Chimaev. Tony and Nate, I'll have exposure to, but way more exposure on Tony. even though he's got 4 straight losses. It's crazy. And then Rodriguez, the pricing is just too good. How are you passing that up? So, and because I like Cutelaba so much, it's like, I'm already saying too much, but it's like, this lineup kind of builds itself out between Dewadu and some of the other names I've already mentioned. You will be able to put together some very strong lineups tonight. So, I'm going to get on out of here. It's a lot of NFL stuff to cover for Sunday. So we got a lot to record still. So I'm going to wrap this up, get this uploaded for you guys to be prepared for UFC tonight, and we'll go from there. But have a good one, folks.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Throwdown podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all other major outlets.